Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. My name is Diane Lill. I work for the Audubon Naturalist Society, and I'm excited to tell you about something really special that is about to happen in our area because millions and millions of cicadas are about to make a dramatic appearance all around the DC metro area throughout Northern Virginia. And I'm so excited about them. And I hope after this talk, you'll be excited too, and you will want to be a friend to cicadas. So let's start out by talking about what a cicada is. It's a type of insect, and as you might know, all insects have three body parts. So on the head of the cicada, there are two big eyes, three little eyes, a pair of antennae, and some specialized sucking mouth parts. The middle region is called the thorax, and that's where the legs are. And do you know how many legs all insects have? 6 legs, that's right. And this is where the wings attach, so all the muscles for locomotion are in the thorax. And then the third body segment is the abdomen, and in cicadas, it's really stripy. You can see it in this picture underneath those wings. Cicadas are very closely related to some common insects that you may have seen around your schoolyard or maybe even in your house, like these yellow aphids and these gray stink bugs. And did you know throughout the world there are more than 2,000 different types of cicadas? This is one that you may be familiar with. You may see this every summer in our area. It's green and black, and it makes a lot of noise. We usually hear it later in the summer, like in August. So it has the nickname of the Dog Day cicada. But this is a little bit different from the one that we are about to see. Although I will tell you, all cicadas are very gentle insects. They can all be handled gently. They cannot bite or sting. They're very gentle creatures. The ones that we're about to see are part of brood 10, or sometimes called brood X. You see, I got my shirt. I'm all ready for them. X is the Roman numeral for 10. So they are brood 10 periodical cicadas. So let's learn all about brood 10 and what we can expect with them. They're different from the annual Dog Day cicadas that we see every year in many ways. What's really amazing about the periodical cicadas of brood 10 is they have a very long life cycle. They are one of the longest living insects in the world. So we only see them once every 17 years, but when we do see them, we see billions of them. The annual or Dog Day cicadas have a much smaller lifespan. So they only take about 3 to 5 years to fully live out their life cycle. And the adults emerge asynchronously every summer. So we see a small number of them every year. The other big difference is the periodical cicadas come out in the spring. So we will be seeing them next month. They are right around the corner. The Dog Day cicadas tend to be later in the summer. So we will still see Dog Day cicadas this summer, but we're going to get a special treat with the brood 10 cicadas. A lot of people confuse cicadas with locusts, or they tend to just call them locusts, but cicadas are not locusts. So let's compare them. You can see in these pictures that they look very different. The cicadas are part of a group of insects known as true bugs, and they have these sucking mouth parts that help them to drink plant sap. Do you see in that picture on the bottom? It's almost like a straw sticking right out of its mouth. But locusts are actually a type of grasshopper. And if you look at the face of that locust, it has chewing mouth parts. So this is the big difference. When you have a swarm of locusts, they can chew and destroy crops. Cicadas can't do that. They are totally harmless. This is a really cool map that shows all of the different broods of periodical cicadas. This is the only place in the world that has them. So I think we are so lucky to be able to see this amazing, amazing experience of nature. And in this map, the different broods are represented with different colors. So you can see there's 15 broods altogether. 3 of them come out every 13 years, and the other 12 come out every 17 years. So we are right here where I just circled that area. We're sort of in the epicenter of brood 10. A brood is a group of cicadas that all emerges at the same time. So if you look more closely at our, DC metro area, you can see that they will be all around Northern Virginia. This map shows counties in purple that are known to have had brood 10 in the past. Whether or not you see it right in your neighborhood, it depends. They're not evenly distributed. There are some neighborhoods and some locations that have tons of them and others that don't have a lot. It's kind of patchy. So the best way to know where to look is to ask an adult who remembers the last time that they emerged 17 years ago, because chances are they'll be in the same places. Now, based on what I've told you about how they drink plant sap from tree roots, where do you think we should look for brood 10 cicadas? If you're thinking forested areas, yeah, that's right, because they live on the roots of trees underground. They're not going to be in fields. They're definitely not going to be in paved areas like parking lots. They're not going to be in agricultural fields. In your neighborhood, it depends how old your neighborhood is. If you have lots of older trees, you might see cicadas there. The trees would have to be at least 17 years old in order to have cicadas living in them. One thing that people don't realize that I think is so cool is that all of the cicadas emerging in brood 10 are not the same. There are 3 different species of cicadas that comprise brood 10, and that's one of the reasons it's so big. So to tell them apart, you have to pick them up and turn them over and look at the abdomen. And this one on the left, Magicicada septemdecim, is the biggest one and the most common one. So that's probably the one you'll see the most, but it might be fun to see if you can find all 3 species of cicadas. And they all have the genus name Magicicada because it's like magic the way they all appear at the same time. So this is the other thing that I think is amazing about the cicada. The life cycle is different from that of many insects you might have already learned about, like butterflies. The cicada life cycle only has 3 stages. It starts out as an egg, like all insects do, but then it turns into what we call a nymph. And the nymph grows and grows and grows. It sheds its skin each time it grows, does that 4 times underground. And then it emerges from the ground and does the final molt to become the adult. So the cicadas that we're about to see have been in this nymph stage for 17 years. They were eggs back in 2004, then they hatched, and those little nymphs went underground, and there they have stayed for the last 17 years. So this is really different from the butterfly life cycle, where the egg turns into the larva or the caterpillar, and then it goes through that pupal stage before it emerges as an adult. And if you think about it, the larva and the adult look completely different. They undergo what we call complete metamorphosis. But the cicadas, they just have nymphs that get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they basically look like the adult. So if you look on this drawing, underground here, this is what the cicada nymphs look like right now. And they are getting ready, digging tunnels up out of the soil to come up, emerge, do their final molt, emerge as adults. Then the adults will go up in the trees where the mating will happen. That's what all the noise is all about that we're going to hear. And then the females are going to lay their eggs up in the tree branches. And then later in the summer, after about 50 days, so probably be early August, those eggs are going to hatch, and those tiny little white nymphs are going to fall down to the ground and burrow their way into the soil. And we won't see them again until 2038. One of the things that is so amazing about cicadas is their mouth parts. So underground right now, they are tapped into the tree roots. They're sucking on the tree roots. Now, I have this handy dandy reusable straw. I carry it around with me in my purse because when I go to restaurants, I don't want to have to use plastic straws. I can just use this and wash it and reuse it. But if I was a cicada, I would have this like attached to my mouth. It's like they have a built-in straw and it's strong. It can poke into the tree roots and suck up those plant juices. If you were to dig up a cicada right now, or maybe like turn over a flagstone or a rock, you might see them looking exactly like this right now. This is their final nymph stage. You can see that sucking mouth part really well. You can see their little wing pads. And in the fall before they emerge, their eyes turn red. Before that, they're white, but their eyes should be red right now. And you might be seeing these holes. These are emergence holes. Sometimes they have a little bit of a mud turret or chimney around them. And this is a sign that we see a good month before they actually emerge. They dig these holes and they get ready. They are about 8 to 12 inches underground. So think about a full pencil length. So they have to be really strong to dig their way out. And when they do emerge, it's going to happen on a warm spring night. The soil temperature will be 64 degrees Fahrenheit. It usually happens after a nice rain. When the soil is nice and soft, they emerge at night. They come out of their holes and then they just go vertical. They go up the nearest tree, fence, grass, whatever they can. And that's where they will undergo the final molting into the adult. So they split open right in their thorax region. And because insects wear their skeletons on the outside of their body, in order to grow bigger, they need to shed their exoskeleton. And so the adult emerges, pumps up its wings. It's white and soft when it first emerges. So it has to hide out in the trees until it hardens up and gets the darker coloring. And left behind are those shells. So the last time, this is just a cicada shell in a tree, the nymphal shell or the exoskeleton. So the last time when the cicadas were out, I collected a bunch of these exoskeletons. They're really fun to collect. Look how small they are. They're so cute. And this is just the shell that was left from the nymph that emerged, but it's totally intact. So when you look at these up close, and I looked with my digital microscope and I blew this up really big, I can see the slit on the thorax where the adult came out, but everything else is totally intact. You can see the stripy abdomen, you can count all the legs. If you turn it on its side, you can see those strong front legs that are specialized for digging out of the soil. And you can see the little wing pad here, all the stripes on the abdomen. You could count the legs. So I encourage you to look for these cicada shells and study them and learn all your parts of the insect. Now, once they emerge, they're going to be very, very loud. You will not miss it if the cicadas are around. It's one of the loudest noises in nature. And that's the sound of the males that are calling to attract the females. And each of those different species in brood 10 has a different call that it makes. So they do make those calls by vibrating these structures called tymbals. And the tymbals can vibrate so fast, it's like a membrane that can vibrate 400 times a second. So that's what the males do to attract the females. Another fun fact, you can tell the difference between male and female cicadas by turning them over, because the females have this very pointy structure at the end of the abdomen. That's called the ovipositor, and that's what the females need to lay their eggs in the tree branches. The males have more of a rounded abdomen. Now, I wanted to show you real quick because I think this is such an amazing video, and hopefully you can hear it. This is the tymbal vibrating. So that's just one cicada making that loud noise with its tymbal. Once the females respond to the males, they can make a noise that sounds like snapping fingers, like this. They kind of flick their wings, but they can't make that loud noise because they don't have the tymbals. Inside of their abdomen, they have all of the eggs that they're getting ready to lay. And so this picture up here is a beautiful painting where you can see the female putting her ovipositor into the twigs. She's looking for branches that are about the diameter of a pencil. So not a big branch, but a small one. And she can lay up to 500 eggs. One female lays hundreds of eggs, but she does it by making these little slits with her strong ovipositor. It's like a saw. And you can see on this drawing, here's one egg mass, here's another one, here's another one. So she has these little nests of eggs and she keeps going along laying eggs. This is what they look like in the branch. And then later on in the summer, when all the cicadas, adult cicadas are dead and we have forgotten about them, guess what? The babies are going to hatch out of those eggs. And those little first instar nymphs are tiny, white. They look like little tiny ants almost. They drop from the trees and burrow underground. And you might see what we call flagging in the trees, which are some of the branches that die from breaking when the females are laying their eggs, but that's not harmful for the trees. For mature trees, it's actually a healthy kind of pruning that happens. So many different animals are going to have a feast day with these cicadas. They will actually switch over from their normal food source and just totally go to town on these cicadas because the cicadas are pretty defenseless. I mean, they can't, bite, sting. So they're very, very juicy treats for all these different types of animals. And if you have a dog, your dog will probably like to eat the cicadas too. So you want to be careful your dog doesn't eat too many and get a tummy ache from that. Even people eat cicadas. There are lots of cookbooks for cicadas out there. And this picture, a friend of mine sent me, she made chocolate covered roasted cicadas the last time that they were out. So if you're adventurous with food, you might want to look into that. But the big question that people always wonder is, why are there so many? Now, remember, they can't bite, they can't sting, they don't have spines, they're not hairy, there's nothing making them taste bad to predators, they have no toxins, they're not poisonous. The only defense they really have is the males who can make a loud noise. So their strategy for survival is to come out in such massive numbers that their predators can get their fill and there will still be plenty of cicadas to reproduce for the next generation. So the name of that strategy is called predator satiation. It's really cool. We don't know how cicadas tell time. Maybe you could become an entomologist and you can work on solving this mystery. They do not have little pocket watches under the soil. We know that they can sense the pulses of sap because they're plugged into the tree roots, but we don't know how they count the years and know that it's been exactly 17 years. What's a really cool mystery here is underground, they live alone. So they're each in their own little chambers underground, yet they all somehow emerge at the same time. It's amazing. Another cool thing, if you're turning over cicadas, looking at them up close, is some of them are missing their abdomen, and instead there is this yellow powdery substance. That's a fungus. Although they have no specialized predators, cicadas do have this one specialized parasite, this fungus that will attack them, and they can still fly around and move because their wings and their legs are attached to the thorax, and the thorax is fine. It's just the abdomen that gets infected. So it's kind of allows them to fly around and spread the spores everywhere. Really cool. And then when the cicadas die, it might smell bad for a little bit because the ones that don't get eaten are going to break down by bacteria and water, and they are going to make the soil so nutritious and healthy so that the cycle of life can continue. So in the few minutes we have left, I wanted to mention that we have this website. I worked on this with scientists from George Washington University and Georgetown University. It's called 2cicadas.org. And from this website, you can download, we have in English and in Spanish, these digital notebooks. And in the digital notebooks, you can learn all about the cicadas and study different subject areas. You can download a writable PDF of these notebooks. And we have some cool videos in them and resources for you to learn more. So I wanted to show you this video. And I'm going to make sure I'm speeding it up. Oops, I'm going to speed this up so we have enough time to see it. This is amazing up-close footage showing you everything I just explained about the cicadas. And again, you can see this video and more in our digital notebook. But this is what's going to happen when they come out or emerge from the soil. These are 17 years old. They're not hatching. They are teenagers, and they are coming out of the soil where they've been living for 17 years. This is what they look like up close. They're really harmless. I think they're cute. They come out in such huge numbers, but it's going to happen at night. So if you wanted to see this happening, you would have to probably stay up really late to see this in action. For most people, they'll just kind of wake up at one morning and there will be lots of cicada noise because the adults will have emerged. So this is beautiful footage. It's going to show you what happens for that final molting when the adult emerges from the nymphal skin and it breaks open in that thorax region. Do you see that the white adult is coming out? And after it comes out like that, it has to do like this big sit up to get upright and pump its wings up. At this point, it's hiding out in the trees because it has to harden up its exoskeleton again. And that's what's happening here, is turning dark. They'll hang out in the trees for about 6 days, and then we will start seeing them flying around everywhere. You know, once they've rested and their shells have hardened, then they start courting. They make all that noise. It's very, very loud. The males are using their tymbals, vibrating them, and the females then will mate with the males. Now, you might see swarms of them like this, and they're kind of clumsy. They might bump into you, but they cannot hurt you. Remember, they can't bite or sting. They're kind of clumsy flyers, but they're just really cool animals. Some of them don't make it, and I know these pictures are a little bit sad. Some have misshapen wings, but again, they are a feast for all of these different animals. So they're a really important part of the ecosystem here where we live. And we might notice populations of birds and other animals actually booming after they have this big cicada feast. So if you see cicadas with their abdomens together like that, that means that they're mating. And then the female makes these little slits with her ovipositor in the tree branches and deposits all of her eggs. Remember, I said she could deposit up to 500 eggs, just one female cicada. So then the cicadas, they'll all be eaten or they will die. They're only active for about a month. Their adult stage is like 28 days. And then we see the shells everywhere. But remember what's happening up in the tree branches on those small little twigs where the eggs were laid. The little nymphs hatch. So this is when they're born. It would be in August. And these nymphs, they have the whole shape of their body. It stays the same. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as they grow. And they somehow instinctively know when they fall from the trees to burrow underground and to start sucking on the plant roots. We won't see them again until 2038, which is just amazing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think we're just about out of time unless you had a quick question, but I hope you'll be Excited to see the cicadas. Check them out. Check out our website, friendtocicadas.org, to learn more.